Law enforcement investigating a shooting at a Brazos Valley school. Tonight, we have the latest on the incident. Plus, he was sentenced to death row, but he might have a chance at freedom. We take you inside the courtroom during the first day of Rodney Reed's case. And their mission is to provide meaningful work and a place of belonging. We introduce you to people behind the Bee community.
Connecting the Brazos Valley. This is KRHD News.
Thanks for joining us at 10. I'm Hallie Jones. There is no danger to the public tonight. That is the message from the Burleson County Sheriff's Office after it is investigating an incident at an area high school. Deputies say around 1 this afternoon, someone inside a vehicle fired a, quote, projectile at students in the Caldwell High School parking lot. The Sheriff's Office says they've located the vehicle and are investigating tonight. Today, Rodney Reed's attorneys started their appeal case. Reed was convicted and sentenced to death for the murder of 19-year-old Stacy Stice in Bastrop in 1996. Bridget Spencer reports.
Death row inmate Rodney Reed appeared before a district judge on Monday for day one of his appeal hearing. Reed was accused of strangling 19-year-old Stacy Stice in 1996 and leaving her body on the side of the road in Bastrop County. He was sentenced to death in 1998 and has been imprisoned ever since. He was brought back to Bastrop County Monday for the appeal hearing. His lawyers say they have new evidence that could ultimately exonerate him.
Only thing that can stand in our way is corruption. Because if the truth be told, my brother's coming home.
On day one, the defense and state did their opening statements, after which the defense brought their first witness in, Dr. Andrew Baker. Baker is an independent forensic pathologist. He concluded that Stites died hours before the 3 to 5 a.m. window that the state originally said. He also says there are inconsistencies about bruising and DNA left on the body.
He was on point. He's showing proof that there was no actual rape. He's showing the world how they lied.
In the afternoon, the state began to cross-examine the doctor, questioning parts of his testimony. They questioned his rigor mortis findings, which further put into question the time of death. Dr. Baker stood by his testimony the majority of the cross-examination.
We feel a lot more confident, but that being said, we already know that my brother is innocent of this crime. We already know about the timeline and everything, about the hours before.
Reed's defense says if this new evidence they're presenting were brought forward back in the original trial, a jury would not have convicted him.
Reed's defense says if this new evidence they are presenting was brought forward back in 1996, a jury would not have convicted him. Governor Greg Abbott announced today he will take action to restrict transition-related medical care for transgender minors. A similar plan failed during the recent legislative session. In a radio interview, the governor announced the plan will be ready as soon as this week, but did not provide any other details. The issue is not on the special session's agenda. However, a proposal to limit transgender kids from playing school sports that correspond with their gender identity is on the agenda. Hundreds of thousands of undocumented immigrants are left with the unsettling question of what happens next after a Texas judge ruled DACA illegal and blocked new applications. DACA provides some relief, allowing kids brought to this country as children a way to get a worker's permit, Social Security, and a driver's license in the state of Texas. Activists say it's time for Congress to take action to continue to allow dreamers to be productive members of society.
It's time that we give these young people the ability to be full members of society and to bring even more of that energy, that gusto for life and for justice to our entire society.
The Biden administration says it plans to appeal the ruling. A statement from the president calls the ruling, quote, deeply disappointing. The president is also calling on Congress to ensure a path to citizenship for the Dreamers. According to NPR, the Biden administration is pleading to protect DACA or put something similar in place. Across the country, more than 600,000 people are DACA recipients. It includes the over 100,000 people here in Texas. The Lone Star State currently has the second most DACA recipients in the country, behind California. So who does the new ruling affect? According to the Texas Tribune, the ruling won't have any effect on the current 600,000 recipients who have the 2-year renewable work permits. But the Tribune says it will affect about 50,000 new applicants nationwide who were not approved before Friday's ruling. In another news, an ICE detainee died following an urgent medical need after authorities failed to hospitalize the person. That is according to a Homeland Security Inspector General report. The incident took place in December of 2020 in Mississippi after a detainee with a history of hypertension asked for help due to chest pains and pain in his arms. He was treated at the medical unit and released, but a short time later collapsed and died. And 3 people, including the gunman, were killed and 2 others hurt following a shooting at a Houston motel. It happened late Sunday night when a man started shooting at people from a second-floor balcony. Authorities believe the man called 911 beforehand, saying he planned to hurt people. When police got to the motel, 2 people were already dead. The man started shooting at officers, who fired back. Officers aren't sure if the shooter was killed by police or by suicide. No officers were injured.
Everyone older than 2 should wear a mask in school this fall, whether or not they've been vaccinated. That is out today from the American Academy of Pediatrics. It says that it's recommending universal masking because a lot of kids are not eligible for vaccines yet, and masking is proven to reduce the spread of COVID-19. It's also strongly pushing for in-person learning. Recent recommendations from the CDC are pushing for that as well, but the CDC said that vaccinated teachers and students don't have to wear masks. Many schools are struggling to find enough teachers as they prepare to go back in the fall. Frontline Education surveyed schools and district leaders across the country, and they found 2 in 3 districts are facing a teacher shortage. Now, that's the highest the number's ever been since Frontline started doing this survey. There was already a shortage before the pandemic, but COVID just made things worse.
Number one reason that educators are telling us that they're experiencing the shortage is a lack of qualified candidates. And so one of the things we know is that we're seeing fewer people interested in going into the teaching profession, and that in fact is increasing through the pandemic.
Some have also said that COVID safety and their work environment is a concern about going back. Smaller cities are having a tougher time attracting job candidates, and schools have really always found it hard to fill teaching in math, science, and special education. Experts do suggest one thing that districts can do to improve that shortage is just making sure that they keep the teachers they already have employed.
There's lots of efforts that are taking place to provide additional professional learning, to make sure that teachers remain engaged, that they have meaningful interactions and experiences as part of their job, that they're getting additional support in areas where they may need additional help or might be struggling.
Experts say it's hard to tell how the shortage will affect students in the classroom this fall. They do worry that the learning loss that happened during the pandemic will get worse if students don't receive individualized support. Ahead in our lineup, a record number of people are still calling 211 for help from the impacts of the pandemic, the type of free assistance you may not realize is available.
Thousands of vehicles are getting recalled after several people were injured. After the break, we see if your car is impacted. One community in the Brazos Valley is providing meaningful work and lifelong relationships through work. KRHD reporter Hannah King introduces us to Brazos Employment Enterprises, or the B Community, a nonprofit showing purpose behind the purchase.
The B Community is a place to shop with a purpose, as well as work and belong.
As a public school special education teacher, I started to see the reality of life after high school for my students and others in similar situations, and learned that up to 80% of adults with intellectual and developmental disabilities are unemployed nationwide. And so the B Community wanted to step into that with a long-term, hope-filled, sustainable solution.
For Adam Sparkman, he's just one of 15 artisans at the B Community. He says these people are more than just friends that he sees 4 days a week.
This is more than just a workplace or co-workers. They're my family, and because I don't have very much family left.
From homemade dog treats and shampoos to earrings and soaps, each purchase directly affects the livelihoods of the artisans. And by supporting their work, Ellerbrock says the narrative shifts to one of dignity and capability for adults with special needs.
We see the need is very great, and so we want to step into that and create as many opportunities as we can, but we want to do that well. And so we've taken a slow growth approach where we're able to really get to know each individual and their unique gifts and skill sets and their families and come alongside of them.
There are a handful of shops in the Brazos Valley that currently sell items from artisans at the Bee community. If you would like to have them at your place of business, visit our website for more information. Reporting in Bryan, Hannah King, KRHD News.
Ford has recalled hundreds of thousands of vehicles. The car maker announced it's recalling 775,000 Ford Explorer SUVs. The move comes after reports of 6 injuries related to steering issues in the U.S. The recall applies to 2013 through 2017 model of the Explorer. Ford also recalled nearly 35,000 2020 and 2021 F-350 Super Duty trucks and more than 40,000 2020 and 2021 Lincoln Aviators. Now let's get a check of the weather with First Alert Chief Meteorologist Matt Himes.
And we did see a couple of showers and thunderstorms earlier today across portions of the Brazos Valley. Tonight, just left over with a few clouds out there, which you can see on our Extraco Eagle Eye looking out over Aggie Land there. And we do have partly cloudy conditions. 83, feeling like 89. Yeah, it is soupy out there. Winds are out of the west at 3 miles per hour. Winds are very light. And that is just adding to that mugginess out there. That air is not stirring at all here across the region. And clouds and radar showing that things are pretty quiet here. There are thunderstorms back in Bell County moving down toward Williamson County, but those are going to move along I-35 and not get close to us here along Highway 6. So it looks like that stays off to the west. There is a little bit of a spin in the atmosphere right now that's located over central Texas. That's going to park itself here over the next couple of days, and it's weak, but it may promote a couple more thunderstorm chances as we head into tomorrow. As we take a look by 6 o'clock in the morning, partly to mostly cloudy skies across the area. Notice by the afternoon, a few widely scattered thunderstorms, about a 30% chance you'll get wet as you head through your Tuesday. So keep the umbrella in the back seat. May have to bring it up from time to time. Then we get into Wednesday and we'll have partly mostly cloudy skies again in the morning. Maybe a couple thunderstorms in the afternoon, probably a little less coverage on Wednesday at about 20%, but still a chance for a few downpours here and there. So tonight, temperatures into the 70s for the most part, with the exception of Centerville at 69 degrees in the morning, 73 for Bryan College Station, and 71 in Caldwell. Then as we make our way into tomorrow, looks like highs will be into the upper 80s and low 90s. Now, normal's 96. But it'll feel like 96 when you factor in the humidity. So all feeling about the same here, even though temperatures will be a little bit below normal out there. So temperatures right around 90 Tuesday and Wednesday, about a 20 to 30% chance you'll get wet. That's going to continue Thursday into Friday as well. Then we get to the weekend and I think things begin to quiet down. Highs will be in the mid 90s both days, and we may be even flirting with the mid and upper 90s as we head to next week, and quite a bit of humidity will ensure that it feels like it's over 100.
With the eviction moratorium ending soon, more people are turning to 211 for help. Housing continues to be the #1 concern that people are calling about.
There is, help being provided and help being paid to people who need that help with rent assistance. Many of our 211 services provide that direct application and payment assistance program.
Rental assistance has been slow to get everyone who needs it in some communities. The United Way says if you're running into dead ends, getting that help, keep calling 211. The nonprofit says it's been able to help provide tens of millions of dollars in rent assistance to help simply by assisting people with their application. But this is a bigger problem beyond the pandemic.
Media assistance like rent is fantastic right now, and it's wonderful. And even an intermediate assistance and some of the rental programs that are available out there. But long-term sustainable solution is finding affordable housing so people can afford to pay their medical bills, to pay for food, to get their kids school supplies.
The other main concerns that 211 has been helping with during the pandemic are healthcare, mental health, and food assistance. Typically, 211 receives 11 million calls a year. New numbers show the service received more than 18 million calls in 2020 nationwide. That's more than 49,000 a day. So far in 2021, they're answering more than 50,000 calls a day. People may call with one problem, but then 211 specialists can help get to the root of what's going on.
Maybe helping a family that is struggling financially recognize that they can reduce some of their expenses by signing up for things like the child tax credit, or getting their taxes prepared and filed for free, or the earned income tax credit that often goes unclaimed in across the communities.
211 is also hiring if you're looking for a job. Some of those positions are remote. You can find available jobs at 211.org by searching for our local 211. Diversity in farming has been shrinking for decades. Next in our lineup, the unique ways that some black farmers are working to stop this decline. Close to 20,000 firefighters are on the front lines battling 80 large wildfires across the West as of today. Those numbers come from the National Interagency Fire Center. That includes the Bootleg Fire in Oregon, which is now that state's largest fire in modern history at more than 300,000 acres, which is about the size of Los Angeles. The extreme heat and drought contributing to fire season are also taking a toll on Christmas tree farmers.
We're sitting here watching trees that we've been growing for 6+ years. Every year you trim, you fertilize, you have labor costs into that, and you're watching them all die in one day.
And over here, there may be no hope for that tree.
They say they've already lost about half the Christmas trees they were planning to sell this holiday season, and it's a similar story for other farmers. Fewer trees will likely drive up prices this winter. NOAA's predicted this will be a busy and active hurricane season. Stephanie Stone shows us how nonprofit aid groups have started their disaster preparation early because of this.
We are ready to go.
Steve Sterling is president and CEO of MAP International. The 65-year-old nonprofit exists to help people get access to medication. Their work is in more than 45 countries.
It's to ship containers of medicines for chronic diseases such as hypertension, cardiovascular, diabetes and asthma, and also antibiotics and prenatal vitamins.
Right now, though, their distribution centers in the U.S. are at the ready and have been ready since January. 10,000 disaster health kits, they say, are already pre-positioned in areas that are expected to get hit hardest this hurricane season.
Toothpaste, toothbrush, comb, washcloth, first aid kit, those type items. And that's what we prepare and provide during disaster response, such as a hurricane.
Sterling says their volunteers started prepping in the winter, assuming that this year would be busy.
This year's been early. It seems like it's getting earlier. But normally during the springtime, February, March time period.
NOAA experts do not anticipate the historic number of storms we saw in 2020. But this year, they say, won't be quiet.
NOAA's outlook for the 2021 Atlanta hurricane season indicates that an above normal season is most likely.
There's a growing movement to help a community that has been slowly shrinking for decades. Alexa Liaco found for many black farmers, losing land is like losing legacy.
So this became the promised land. It became a place where they could call their own.
Named for a slave who bought his own freedom, Nicodemus, Kansas was the place where that feeling became a lifestyle.
This provided an opportunity for African Americans that wanted to leave the war-torn South and the Jim Crow South.
They came here to farm thousands of acres, a much greater opportunity compared to the few dozen acres most freed African Americans had in the South.
We had that connotation that farming was equated to slavery, and we were not going to have any parts of that. But farming is equated to home ownership, land ownership, and prestige for your family, that you own something.
Great. Slow down. There you go.
Dr. Johnella Holmes's family were founding farmers of Nicodemus.
Good job. I'm a proud fifth-generation descendant.
But she and her family no longer farm the land. In fact, Nicodemus now has no African Americans actively harvesting the land themselves.
Yeah, this is a photograph of my mom and dad right here at the farm. Early 90s. This is probably when it was taken.
The farmland owned by black families is leased out to white farmers. Angela Bates's farm is one of them.
Right now, I don't believe there's anybody but a couple of us that actually own land that we're leasing out to others that are farming, because who can afford a combine? Who could afford a John Deere tractor?
Diversity in farming has been shrinking for decades. 100 years ago, there were more than 1 million black farmers. Today, there are fewer than 50,000. High operating costs are part of that decline, but these women say discriminatory loan practices have driven many black farmers out of business.
If nothing is done to reverse that and to look at the inequities, there'll be no black farmers. These are real people and real families that are going to be absolutely devastated by this.
But these women are determined to stop this decline.
Hello, hello. How are you?
Angela runs a restaurant in town to support her dream of keeping her family's land forever.
Where are you guys from?
Colorado and Michigan.
Colorado and Michigan, huh? We have to be stewards of this legacy. We've got to do the best we can to maintain it so that we can pass it on to the next generation.
You did the perfect lines. I do the cutting.
And Jonella is keeping her family legacy alive through education.
I want to make sure that our youth understand that there's pride in being a farmer.
She runs youth camps to show students Nicodemus's history.
Educating so that we can regain.
And through grants, she's bringing in tiny homes to bring farmers back to Nicodemus.
This is just a sign that Nicodemus is going to be here forever.
Planting every seed she can to see this community blossom once again in the years to come.
We need to realize that we're not going to be here forever, and that little dash between the time you're born and the time you die, that's your grand opportunity to do something.
We are people that have a pride and a history that defies what this looks like. Our history is absolutely America's history.
I'm Alexa Liaco reporting.
The Federal Housing Finance Agency is dropping a 0.5% refinance fee on mortgages that was put in place almost a year ago. It was being tacked on to Freddie Mac and Fannie Mae loans. The change is supposed to take effect August 1st, but Bankrate says mortgage refinance rates are already falling. The average rate for refinances was 2.5% on Friday based on one analysis. That's a 0.4% drop in just a day. Some lenders have also already cut rates on 15 and 30-year fixed-rate mortgages. Financial experts say it is proof that the fee didn't do what it was meant to.
Frankly, it didn't pass the smell test from the beginning. The justification for it was that it was to recoup some of the costs of all the forbearance and payment relief that was being provided. The problem was the people that ended up paying this fee were those that were reducing their risk, not increasing their risk. They were reducing their monthly payments.
Bankrate says on a $300,000 mortgage, it could reduce closing costs by about $1,500 or reduce your interest rate by 1/8 of a percentage point, saving you about $20 a month. Bankrate says mortgages need to be between $125,000 and $548,000, depending on the market, to see the refinance benefit.
Jimmy Kimmel is up next. Good Morning Texas is on the air tomorrow at 5 a.m. Thanks for joining us. Have a great night.